In a faded circus tent on the outskirts of a small American town, Ellie the elephant stood chained to a heavy iron stake buried in the hard-packed dirt. The crowd applauded as the ringmaster announced her act, but Ellie didn't move. She swayed gently, side to side, a habit formed in captivity. Children laughed, parents pointed, popcorn spilled. No one noticed the dullness in her eyes, nor the scar tissue around her ankle where the chain had rubbed her raw. Once, she had tried to fight it. As a baby, she had tugged and twisted, but the chain always won. Eventually, she stopped trying. That's how it worked. Not just the physical chain, but the invisible one, the one that taught her she was helpless, even now, fully grown and powerful beyond measure. She didn't roar or rebel. She performed when told and stood still when she wasn't. Ellie didn't remember freedom. But something deep in her, like a forgotten note from an ancient song, still hummed, waiting. The audience clapped louder as the music swelled. Ellie lifted her trunk on cue. But her heart beat slower, deeper, wondering, is this all there is? And somewhere within, the first quiet answer whispered, no. After the crowd dispersed and the lights dimmed, a small boy lingered at the edge of Ellie's pen. His name was Tyler, and he had begged his father to stay a little longer. He was quiet, unlike the others. He didn't shout or throw peanuts. He just watched. She looks sad, he said, more to himself than anyone else. His father, a mechanic, shrugged. She's just tired, maybe. Long day. But Tyler saw more. He noticed the chain, the wound, the way Ellie's ears didn't flap with joy like the ones in the documentaries he loved. That night, he snuck out with an apple from their motel. He tiptoed to Ellie's pen and held it out through the bars. Ellie didn't move at first, but then her trunk, slow and hesitant, reached forward. She took the apple. Tyler didn't flinch. You're not scary, he whispered. You're just stuck. Ellie looked at him. It wasn't a long look, but it was enough. For the first time in years, she felt something different in a human's eyes. Empathy. Not ownership, not expectation, but understanding. The boy smiled. I'll come back tomorrow, he promised. Ellie didn't understand the words, but she believed the feeling. That night, thunder rolled over the hills. Rain hammered the tent and turned the circus grounds to mud. Lightning flashed like ancient fire. Ellie stayed, restless. The wind blew through the canvas flaps and carried smells, earth, pine, water, smells that stirred old instincts. The chain around her leg felt different, softer. The ground was no longer packed dry but slushy, pliable. She moved slightly. The peg shifted. Her heart skipped. Could it be? She pulled again, gently. A little more give. Not much, but more than ever before. She stopped, unsure, but something had changed. The chain was no longer eternal. The sky crackled again, and she lifted her trunk toward the open air, tasting freedom in the storm. It wasn't just about the peg. It was about permission. Something inside her had granted it. The storm passed, but the possibility remained. All night, she didn't sleep. She stood still, feeling the soft earth around the stake, listening to the wind. For the first time in years, she let herself dream, not of the act, not of the applause, but of walking without chains, of hearing nothing but her own breath and the world whispering back, run. Tyler came back the next day, backpack bulging with apples and resolve. He had watched videos all night of elephants in the wild, herds moving through savannas, calves splashing in rivers, matriarchs leading with strength and tenderness. He saw Ellie in those videos, not hay under the stained canvas. Hi again, he said softly. Ellie came closer. Her eyes met his, calm but curious. Tyler sat cross-legged outside her enclosure and began talking. Not loudly, not to impress, just to connect. He told her about his school, how he wanted to be a vet, how he didn't like how animals were treated in places like this. It's not fair, he said. You're too smart to be chained. Ellie lowered her head slightly. A signal. She was listening. Tyler took photos of her scarred leg, then of her sad eyes. That evening, He posted them online with a simple caption: "She deserves better." Within hours, a few people had liked and shared it. By morning, there were hundreds. Ellie's story was no longer just Tyler's. It was the world's. Something had begun. Not just a friendship, but a movement. Tyler didn't know how, but he knew this: Ellie wouldn't be forgotten. Tyler's post gained traction faster than he imagined. Animal rights groups shared it. Influencers added hashtags. #FreeEllie began trending. People flooded the circus's social media pages with demands. "Unchain the elephant." "Justice for Ellie." Comments poured in from every state, then other countries. Tyler's father was startled when his boss mentioned seeing his son on the news. Reporters came to the motel, asking for interviews. Tyler, shy but firm, said, "She doesn't belong in chains. She belongs in the wild, with her kind." A local news anchor showed up at the circus, camera rolling. The manager, red-faced and sweating, dismissed it all as a misunderstanding. But pressure was mounting. Donations flowed into animal rescue groups promising to help. A sanctuary in Tennessee offered Ellie a home. "We'll take her," they said. "She deserves peace." The circus, stubborn, resisted. But Ellie was no longer a forgotten performer. She was a symbol. Tyler stood outside her enclosure every day now, flanked by supporters holding signs. One read, "Her silence is our shame." The crowd was growing, and so was the chorus calling for her freedom. Ellie watched them. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the shift. The world was changing, and so was she. The circus owners didn't expect the backlash to grow so fast. They held emergency meetings behind locked doors. Some employees quit, uncomfortable with the scrutiny. Others doubled down. The ringmaster, fearing financial ruin, tried to turn the attention into profit. "See the famous internet elephant," posters advertised. Crowds swelled, but not to cheer. Many came to protest. Tyler stood firm, speaking calmly to anyone who would listen. "She isn't a show. She's a prisoner." Ellie felt the difference. The applause no longer meant adoration. It was filled with tension, with guilt. Protesters chanted outside, and the local police showed up to keep peace. Inside, Ellie performed as required. But each trick felt heavier, each trumpet softer. Her spirit stirred uneasily. One night, the tense fabric was slashed, graffiti scrawled, "Let her go." The circus called it vandalism. Tyler called it a message. A major news network ran a special, "Ellie the Elephant, Symbol of Change." Donations to the sanctuary surged. Under mounting pressure, the circus finally relented. They consider a transfer. Papers were drawn, but Ellie didn't know that yet. She only knew that the chain had felt looser, the stake less certain. And for the first time, freedom felt close enough to smell. Morning sunlight poured through the thin circus tent fabric, casting long shadows over Ellie's enclosure. The air was thick with anticipation, but Ellie couldn't understand why. Tyler arrived early, backpack slung over his shoulder, eyes bright with hope. He knelt beside the pen, speaking softly. "Today's the day, Ellie. I promise." His voice was steady, but his heart raced. Months of fighting, sharing, and believing had led to this moment. Animal rescue volunteers arrived with gentle hands and kind eyes, carrying paperwork and new equipment for transport. Ellie watched quietly, her trunk curling and uncurling nervously. The ringmaster paced nearby, still unwilling to admit defeat. But Tyler's family and the sanctuary team worked with local officials to finalize the transfer. Slowly, the heavy chains were removed from Ellie's legs. The cold metal dropped with a clank that echoed louder than any applause. For the first time in years, Ellie's foot touched soft earth without restraint. She lifted her head, sensing the change. Not just physical, but something deeper, a spark rekindling inside her. Tyler smiled through tears. "You're going home, Ellie." The word hung in the air like a promise. Ellie trumpeted softly, a sound full of both fear and hope. Her transformation had truly begun. Ellie's new home was far from the circus tent and flashing cameras. The sanctuary was nestled deep in the rolling hills of Tennessee, surrounded by vast forests and wide open meadows. The transport truck was large but quiet, lined with soft straw and blankets. Tyler and the sanctuary team accompanied Ellie, speaking gently and offering reassuring touches. Ellie was uneasy, her massive frame shifting as the truck rumbled over highways and country roads. Yet, with each mile, the weight on her spirit seemed to lift a little. Outside the windows, trees blurred by, and distant mountains rose like ancient sentinels. Tyler thought of the wild herds he had watched on his phone, imagining Ellie someday running free with them. The sanctuary welcomed her with calm voices and a wide enclosure filled with fresh grass, a pond, and trees to shade her from the sun. Ellie hesitated but stepped down slowly, feeling the earth underfoot with no chain or peg to hold her back. That night, beneath a blanket of stars, she slept for the first time without the noise of the circus ringing in her ears. The journey from captivity to hope was just beginning. Days passed in the sanctuary, and Ellie began to explore her new world. The grass was soft and cool beneath her feet, and the pond's water was clear and inviting. Volunteers brought fresh fruits and vegetables, but Ellie often preferred to forage on her own, as if rediscovering forgotten habits. Her scars slowly faded, but the deeper wounds, those of fear and doubt, remained invisible. Tyler visited often, each time bringing stories and songs. He taught her to trust again with gentle words and quiet presence. Ellie's eyes brightened with recognition, and her trunk reached out, a slow but certain sign of connection. Sanctuary staff monitored her health and behavior, noting progress that once seemed impossible. Other elephants nearby watched Ellie with curiosity, and slowly, a shy social bond began to form. Ellie trumpeted softly, a language of friendship and hope. Each step in the sanctuary was a step away from pain and towards transformation, not just of her body, but of her spirit. Tyler stood quietly by, witnessing a miracle unfold. Ellie's transformation was no longer just a tale to tell, it was real and alive. One morning, Ellie noticed a newcomer, a younger elephant named Maya, arriving at the sanctuary. Maya was lively and curious, with a playful spirit that Ellie hadn't seen in a long time. At first, Ellie watched from a distance, cautious but intrigued. Maya approached slowly, trunk extended in greeting. Ellie mirrored the gesture, their trunks touching gently like old friends reuniting. Maya nudged Ellie toward the pond, encouraging her to splash and play. Ellie hesitated, then joined in, sending water droplets sparkling through the sunlit air. For the first time since the circus, Ellie laughed in her own way, a deep rumble of joy that echoed across the fields. Tyler smiled from the sidelines, knowing this friendship was a turning point. Maya's presence reminded Ellie she was not alone, that freedom included connection, trust, and joy. The two elephants wandered the sanctuary side by side, exploring, playing, and healing together. Ellie's transformation deepened with every shared moment, the heavy chains of her past replaced by bonds of love and friendship. Ellie's days at the sanctuary grew brighter as she slowly learned to trust humans again. The volunteers were patient, never forcing her but always present with calm energy. Tyler often sat beside her, reading aloud or playing soft music from his phone, something he had learned helped soothe animals. Ellie began to respond, lifting her trunk to touch his hand gently. The past's fear was not easily forgotten, but moments like these softened the edges. The sanctuary vet visited regularly, carefully tending to Ellie's wounds and ensuring her health. They measured her weight, checked her joints, and watched for signs of stress. Tyler learned alongside the staff, asking questions, absorbing knowledge that made him feel more connected to Ellie's recovery. Each morning, Ellie walked farther, exploring new parts of the sanctuary with growing confidence. At night, she rested peacefully, no longer haunted by nightmares of chains and cages. Slowly, a new life was taking root, one where trust was a fragile but flourishing seed. Tyler promised himself he would do everything to keep that seed alive. Ellie wasn't just an elephant, she was a symbol of hope and resilience. And with every gentle step she took, she was healing not just her body, but the broken bond between humans and the wild. The sanctuary wasn't just a place of healing for Ellie, it was a community. Volunteers and staff worked tirelessly to create a space where animals like Ellie could live with dignity. Educational programs brought local children to learn about elephants and conservation, fostering awareness and empathy. Tyler often joined these sessions, eager to share Ellie's story and inspire others. One afternoon, the sanctuary hosted a small event to celebrate Ellie's progress. People gathered around the enclosure, some holding signs of support, others simply curious to meet the elephant who had captured so many hearts. Ellie stood tall, her massive frame casting a peaceful shadow. The sanctuary director spoke about the importance of compassion and action, urging the crowd to protect wild animals everywhere. Tyler felt proud, knowing his small act had sparked something bigger than he imagined. The event wasn't just a celebration, it was a call to action, a reminder that every voice counts. Ellie trumpeted softly as if joining the chorus, her spirit now intertwined with those fighting for a better future. The sanctuary had given Ellie freedom, but it had also given Tyler a purpose, one he carried with fierce determination. Even as Ellie adapted to her new life, memories of the circus haunted her sometimes. The sudden noises, the flashes of light, and the unfamiliar sense would stir a shadow of fear deep inside. At night, when the sanctuary was quiet and the stars shone bright, Ellie would sometimes gaze toward the distant hills where the circus once stood. Tyler noticed these moments and knew healing wasn't linear, it came with ups and downs. He spent extra time sitting with Ellie during these times, speaking softly, offering comfort through presence alone. Slowly, Ellie began to face those shadows, recognizing that she was safe now. The sanctuary's natural sounds, the rustle of leaves, the gentle flow of a nearby stream, replaced the harsh noises of the past. Ellie learned to breathe with the wind, to listen to the world's gentle heartbeat. Tyler felt honored to witness this fragile dance of healing, where trauma and hope intertwined. It was a reminder that transformation takes courage, and sometimes the hardest battles are fought quietly, within. Ellie's past was part of her story, but it no longer defined her future. One morning, sanctuary staff introduced Ellie and Maya to a small herd of elephants living in an adjacent enclosure. The group greeted them with curious trumpets and welcoming gestures. Ellie's heart pounded. This was the moment she had dreamed of, yet feared. Slowly, she stepped toward the herd, Maya close behind. The elephants circled them, sniffing and nudging, creating a chorus of gentle calls. Ellie felt a powerful surge, a connection deeper than anything she'd known. She recognized the instinct to belong, to protect, to lead. The matriarch, a wise old elephant named Lila, stepped forward and gently touched Ellie's forehead with her trunk. It was a gesture of acceptance, a silent promise that Ellie was part of his family now. Tears welled in Tyler's eyes as he watched Ellie find her place. The sanctuary wasn't just a refuge, it was a home where Ellie could be whole again. Together, the herd wandered through the trees, moving as one. Ellie's transformation was no longer just physical, it was spiritual. She was free, connected, and strong. Tyler's visits continued, each time bringing new stories and lessons. He spoke to local schools, sharing Ellie's journey and the importance of kindness toward all living beings. His voice grew confident, fueled by the change he'd helped ignite. Ellie's story became a beacon, inspiring many to reconsider how animals are treated. Tyler learned about conservation efforts worldwide and dreamed of one day helping elephants in their natural habitats. The sanctuary became a hub for education, activism, and hope. Visitors came from across the country, some skeptical, others moved to tears. Ellie greeted them with quiet dignity, her eyes reflecting the depth of her experience. Tyler realized that compassion was contagious. It spread through stories, actions, and hearts willing to listen. Ellie's transformation was proof that change was possible, even after the darkest times. The bond between a boy and an elephant had shifted perspectives, ignited a movement, and changed lives. Tyler smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. Together, they were rewriting the future, one step, one story, one act of kindness at a time. Despite all the progress, life at the sanctuary wasn't without challenges. Ellie occasionally showed signs of stress, small tremors, hesitation. moments of withdrawal. The sanctuary staff understood these were echoes of her past trauma. One afternoon, a loud thunderstorm rattled the trees, and Ellie retreated to a sheltered corner, trembling. Tyler rushed to her side, wrapping an arm gently around her massive frame. "It's okay, Ellie," he whispered, his voice steady and calming. The sanctuary's veterinary team monitored her closely, adjusting care routines to meet her needs. Tyler learned that healing wasn't just physical, it required patience and empathy. He realized that freedom was a journey, not a destination. Ellie's story inspired many, but it also reminded everyone that rescue was only the beginning. Every animal carried scars unseen, and it was humanity's responsibility to nurture those wounds with care and respect. Tyler's commitment deepened. He volunteered more hours, helped raise funds, and spoke at events to raise awareness about the complexities of animal rehabilitation. Ellie, with her quiet strength, taught everyone around her that transformation was possible, even when the path was difficult and uncertain. News about Ellie and the sanctuary spread beyond Tennessee. Environmental groups and animal welfare activists invited Tyler to speak at conferences and rallies. His simple story, a boy who stood up for an elephant, resonated with people across the nation. Ellie became more than just an animal in recovery, she became a symbol for change. Schools used her story in lessons about empathy and conservation. Social media campaigns urged governments to improve laws protecting wild animals. Tyler watched with amazement as Ellie's journey sparked conversations in places he never imagined. But with attention came responsibility. Tyler felt the pressure to represent Ellie's story truthfully and respectfully. He worked closely with sanctuary leaders to ensure every message honored Ellie's dignity. The sanctuary also launched programs to rescue other animals from captivity, inspired by Ellie's transformation. Tyler's dream of a better world for elephants and all creatures was gaining momentum. Ellie, once chained and silent, had become a powerful voice through the hearts she touched. Tyler knew their story was far from over, but for now, it was a beacon of hope in a world desperate for kindness. Months turned to a year, and the sanctuary began preparing Ellie for the next phase, gradual reintroduction into a more natural habitat. The staff built larger enclosures mimicking wild terrain, complete with streams, tall grasses, and plenty of room to roam. Tyler visited often, watching as Ellie's strength and confidence grew. She explored the new landscape eagerly, testing her limits. One crisp morning, sanctuary leaders announced a plan to release Ellie into a protected wildlife reserve nearby, where she could live among other elephants and experience true freedom. Tyler felt a mix of excitement and sadness. He knew Ellie belonged in the wild, but the thought of saying goodbye was hard. The sanctuary team prepared Ellie carefully, monitoring her health and behavior. Tyler promised to visit and support her journey. The day of release arrived with a quiet ceremony attended by volunteers, activists, and Tyler's family. Ellie stepped into the open reserve, her massive feet sinking into the soft earth. She raised her trunk high, trumpeting a call that echoed through the forest. Tyler's heart soared. Ellie's transformation was complete. She was finally home. Ellie's release became a landmark moment for conservation in the region. Her story inspired new laws protecting wild elephants and funding for sanctuaries nationwide. Tyler continued his advocacy, now traveling to schools and conferences, urging people to respect wildlife and protect natural habitats. The sanctuary named a new education center after Ellie, ensuring her legacy lived on. Visitors came from far and wide to learn about her journey and the ongoing fight against animal cruelty. Ellie thrived in the reserve, forming bonds with wild herds and roaming freely under open skies. Tyler visited as often as he could, marveling at her freedom and strength. Ellie's transformation had shifted more than just her own life. It had shifted perspectives, policies, and hearts. Her tale became a reminder that every creature deserves compassion and a chance to live authentically. Tyler looked to the future with hope, knowing that one elephant's journey had sparked a movement. Ellie's story was no longer just a memory, it was a living legacy. Years later, Tyler sat beneath a towering oak tree at the sanctuary's education center, now a grown man with a mission. He thought back to that first day he met Ellie, chained and silent, and how their bond had grown into a force for change. The world had learned from Ellie's courage, embracing a new understanding of freedom, respect, and empathy for all creatures. Tyler's voice reached thousands through talks, books, and campaigns. He knew the story was bigger than one elephant or one boy. It was a call to see the world differently, to recognize the chains, visible and invisible, that bind beings and break spirits, to fight for transformation, not just for animals but for humanity itself. Ellie's journey had shifted perspectives, inspiring people to dream bigger, act kinder, and believe in change. Tyler smiled, feeling her presence in the rustling leaves and warm breeze. The tale of Ellie the elephant was a testament to hope, a reminder that even the heaviest chains can break, and every soul deserves to walk freely toward the horizon. True freedom begins not when the chains are broken, but when the spirit dares to believe it was never meant to be bound.